I'm Ryan Funk, and welcome to You Talk. It's a program dedicated to diversity, highlighting native-born and new Canadians' cultures and experiences. There's a vast amount of information that one needs when immigrating to Canada. However, through all the information around banking, getting a job, and learning English, information on our Indigenous population is light. That's where Jamie Banias comes in, as the Indigenous Engagement Coordinator at Immigration Partnership Winnipeg. She and others work at improving knowledge and awareness of our Indigenous peoples to newcomers.
So a lot of what I do, Immigration Partnership Winnipeg does not do direct services, but what we do is we work with settlement serving organizations that do direct services. And then we find other organizations in the community and we connect everyone together to work on projects that will help create a more inclusive community altogether. So one of the major things that we're working on right now is the Indigenous Orientation Toolkit.
Tell me a little bit about your background, your life journey, how you got to where you are today. You mentioned you identify as urban Indigenous. So what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so my family comes from Kanistan Saulteaux Nation, which is on Treaty 4 territory in Saskatchewan. And I have, there is a reserve that the Kanistan Saulteaux band has, and I've never been there. My family moved around a lot when I was young. My dad worked for the government, so we moved mostly in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nunavut, which at the time was the Northwest Territories. But I never really had a one place that I felt like I was from or that I felt like it was home. So I just kind of grew up in a lot of different cities and a lot of different towns. Winnipeg was the first place that my family lived for more than about a year or two. So this is kind of just where I ended up, and it started to feel like home and where I'm from. So that's how I identify.
Yeah, I can definitely understand once you move somewhere and it just feels like home. I'm recently new to Winnipeg myself. And, it's just, this whole pandemic has made things feel weird. Haven't been able to really engage or build like a community right now. But yeah, it's once you get somewhere, you're like, okay, yeah, I can set up town here, set up shop.
Yeah, well, be careful because Winnipeg grows on you and then eventually you just can't leave.
How did you become the Indigenous Engagement Coordinator? I see your background. You've graduated from production art at MITT. You went back to school at Red River College in 2019 to take business administrative studies, yeah. And you're taking a certificate in adult education. So do all those experiences led you to there, or were you working there prior? And I guess what is it about education that drives you, that you keep wanting to go and strive and educate yourself and grow yourself?
Yeah, so I'm actually really glad that you asked what led me to work at Immigration Partnership Winnipeg, because this is kind of a funny story. I kind of feel like I was meant to be here because I didn't really try for it. And if you want to get technical, I didn't even apply for it. So I was working in a completely different industry and I was really not happy with my job. And I was like, I just want to do something completely different. And I've always loved marketing and advertising and event planning and things like that, which is why I took production art from MITT, because I've just always been creative. So I started applying for marketing positions and like fundraising and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I ended up applying for this position at a settlement serving organization, and I was very unqualified for this position. And I walked in and said, I am very unqualified. I do not have the education experience to be able to prove that I can do this, but I really want to. And I love the message behind your organization. I really want to help. And I didn't get the job because I was horribly unqualified for it. But the executive director was like, I love your passion and you have such amazing skills, and I know a job that you would be perfect for. And so she sent me the job posting, and I was like, I can't do that job. I don't know anything about Indigenous culture. I would be terrible at that job. And so I was like, oh, thanks for the reference. Like it's wonderful. I'll think about it. And she's like, oh, don't worry, I already sent your resume over.
Just locked right into there.
Yeah. So I ended up getting this interview, and I'll go back to about not feeling like I know anything about Indigenous culture later, but I got this interview and I panicked, and I messaged my aunties on Facebook, and I was like, aunties, I have this interview for like being an Indigenous Engagement Coordinator, and they're expecting me to be Indigenous. And my aunties were like, you are Indigenous? So yeah. And I was like, well, what do I need to know? What am I going to need to do or tell them so that they think that I can do this job? And one of my aunties said to me, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be who you are. And you need to be honest about how you feel. So I was like, okay. And I went into the interview, and he said, what makes you think that you can be an Indigenous Engagement Coordinator with Immigration Partnership Winnipeg? And I said, absolutely nothing. I don't know. I don't feel like I know anything about Indigenous culture. I don't have a background in social work. I don't know why I was recommended for this position. And he was like, then why are you here? And I was like, because I want to help. I want to do good things. I want to help the community be able to understand each other and be able to know more. And I want to learn. I want to learn more about my own culture, and I want to learn more about how other cultures interact. And eventually we got to talking about my background and skills and professional aspects. So I'm certain that helped, but that they hired me. And I think one of the main things was just, I really have to go back and be like, that was the best advice that my auntie possibly could give me, that you need to be yourself, and you need to be honest about how you feel and who you are.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, when that passion shines out, like you can have someone who's extremely qualified for a job, like logistically, but if they lack that passion, they're never going to, bring that job up or highlight it to, put it on that pedestal that it needs in order to, do the best that they can.
And I mean, there's been a few projects over the course of the year that I've been working here. There's been a few projects that it turns out that I'm just perfect for, that everything it's, I don't think anybody could have possibly done that specific thing as well as I could have. But it's not something that they knew that they needed. And it definitely is not something that I knew that I needed. So I just kind of feel like the universe came together and was like, yep, this is where you need to be for this time.
Yeah. The job was crafted for you, not the other way around.
A little bit of both. Just not in ways that we can understand, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So you're working on the Indigenous Orientation Toolkit. What exactly is that? And what is the importance of, having a program like that currently?
So when someone decides that they're going to come to Canada, or they're going to immigrate or move here, or if they're accepted under refugee status, so they arrive in Canada and they're given this information from the government that's like, this is Canada. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this information that they're given about Canada has almost no information about Indigenous people in it. So it's like, Indigenous people exist in Canada, and sometimes they're called Indians. Mm-hmm. And that's it. There's nothing else. So they come and there's this gap of knowledge, and parents will really identify this, but if you don't talk to your kids about something, their friends are going to talk to them about it, and the media is going to talk to them about it. And it's not that they don't know, It's that you don't get to control what information goes in. So when they have this gap of knowledge, it starts to get filled with different things. Like people will say, be careful downtown, or be careful in the North End if you go there at night. And so they go there during the day and they see all of these Indigenous people around. They're like, oh, Indigenous people must be dangerous. Or, I really should be careful. I can't get too close to them. Or even coming in as an international student and finding out, the student fees for international students, and then finding out that someone in your class is there under an Indigenous scholarship. And it's like, oh, you feel like you're paying for both of your tuitions, that you're paying more, and it's not fair. And it starts to create this divide between communities. And
a real lack of context through this whole situation, and in environments, and places where people are. Like, if you just come in, you won't realize, without that context about things.
Yeah. And I mean, even if it's not negative perceptions that are filling this gap, it's still being filled by misinformation and misconceptions. And so even if you have a positive view, you start to get into things like pan-Indigenism or stereotyping, where it's just, you assume that I don't even know what to go. You just assume that everybody is one way. And so because this gap exists, it's not good. Like, I don't even need to explain why racism is bad. But so Immigration Partnership Winnipeg decided they wanted to do something about it. They were like, this is not, we can't just wait for somebody else to do something. So they started creating this orientation toolkit. And what it's going to do is provide settlement serving organizations with information about Canada's history, about Indigenous people and culture and contemporary issues that are affecting Indigenous people. And it's just going to provide that context for the settlement serving organizations so that they can work it into their programs, so that when people come to Canada, they don't have this gap of knowledge anymore, and they can really start to understand and connect with Indigenous people and communities. And they can really understand what treaties are and why people keep referencing them, and why there's land acknowledgements and all of these different things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so important to have, like, a program like this and bringing awareness around the issue, because there's such a disservice done to the Indigenous population. And even if you're native born here in Canada, but if you're non-Indigenous, you don't know, you don't understand the culture, you don't know about these people, what they're going through, only what the media or like governments tell you.
Yeah, and they don't talk a lot about the reasons why. And I mean, until you really connect and you really start talking with people who are experiencing things, you can't really start to understand how people are being shaped and affected by things that are going on in the news or in history.
Yeah, wow, that's an amazing program. Is there some other projects that you're currently working on?
Oh, wow. So Immigration Partnership Winnipeg has a lot of projects. So they're a local immigration partnership, which is a type of organization that, like I said, it builds bridges and relationships between different organizations so that they can help each other. So they're the largest one in Canada, and they have so many different things that are being worked on, but we all work so collaboratively, and it's just such an amazing group of people to work with, that if I'm for the toolkit, anything that I need, I can pull any person in, and for whatever project they're focusing on, anything that they need, I could be pulled into that. So I guess some of the big ones that I've been assisting with are the COVID-19 anti-racism campaign. which is huge. And I think there's 42 different organizations that have signed on with it. It started out, of course, because of COVID-19 related anti-Asian racism. And it's just grown from there. And like recently, the city of Winnipeg actually signed on as a partner, and they've committed to doing a anti-racism week with the city of Winnipeg, where they're going to provide a bunch of training that for the city of Winnipeg employees, and they're going to be looking at different policies and things like that. So that's one of the major projects. Some kind of smaller ones that I've been called in to assist with are like, let's see, there's the leadership and board capacity project, which is looking at diversity on different boards within the city. How diverse is your board? Being able to do like a audit of the board of directors, just to see if a board of directors of an organization is actually reflecting the community that they serve. Some anti-racism in sport. But I want to come back to this identity of being an urban Indigenous person, and saying previously that I don't feel like I know anything about Indigenous culture, and even like having to be reminded that I am an Indigenous person. But growing up, I was not allowed to learn about Indigenous culture. And so like I remember asking my mom what band we were from or where we came from, and her telling me, no, it's not important. It's not something that you need to know. And it's easier if you don't think about that. And that was the world that I grew up in, that it was easier to not be Indigenous. So you were just not supposed to be. I think that's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot when we talk about Indigenous culture. Like people think about powwows and about festivals and stuff, but they don't realize that like a generation of people grew up feeling like it was bad to be who they are. So when we talk about things like connecting cultures and learning more about different cultures, and even that learning about things that happened and the history of Canada and how that in fact affected Indigenous people, I really think that it's important to talk about that uncomfortability that comes with feeling like who you are or where you came from is bad. So, yeah.
Heavy.
I know this is something I really wanted to say, because like even when I first heard about this interview and I was invited to this interview, I had that moment of panic. Like they're going to ask me about Indigenous culture, and I don't know. I've never been to a powwow. I've never been to a reserve. I've never been to ceremony. I don't know about these things. And so that was one thing that I really wanted to bring up in this interview, and I really wanted to talk about, because there's thousands of people that have this culture that I have, that they grew up thinking that they can't be a part of that. And I don't think that it gets talked about enough. So I just wanted to be able to talk about that.
No, that's great. That's definitely a conversation that needs to start. I mean, it's never great when like you have a culture that you're a part of and society tells you, no, that's no good.
Yeah.
No.
It's changing now, and that's great. The ability to ask questions, to be able to have these conversations, and that ability to say, I want to learn and I want to know about it, and have somebody say that's great. Because when I was younger, I wanted to know and I wanted to learn, and that was not great. That was not a good thing. So that's the importance of bringing communities together and being able to learn about each other is without that, thousands of people don't get to learn about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess baby steps are still progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice if progress could go quicker, but
Well, I personally believe that everything that happens, there's something to be learned from it, and there's something good that comes from it. And, no matter how awful it is, or no matter how much you wish that things were different, things wouldn't be as they are, and you wouldn't be as you are if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through, and if things hadn't been the way that they were. So as much as I might want to say, I wish I was a different person, I wish I grew up differently, I wish things had been different, or that, things were changing faster, things kind of happen the way that they're meant to happen. And all we can really do is our best and try and learn from it and try and make things better for later.
If you have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight, leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was U Talk, and have yourself a good one.